The fluorescent lights of the downtown courthouse hummed with their usual electrical discord, casting harsh shadows across the marble floors that had witnessed decades of human drama. Assistant District Attorney Sarah Chen adjusted her navy blazer and inhaled the familiar cocktail of industrial cleaner and stale coffee that permeated the building's corridors. At 34, she had prosecuted everything from petty theft to murder, but today felt different, heavier somehow. "Counselor Chen," Judge Matthews called from his bench, his voice echoing in the packed courtroom. "Are you ready to proceed with the Commonwealth versus Rodriguez?" Sarah glanced at the defendant's table, where Marcus Rodriguez sat rigid in his ill-fitting suit, his weathered hands clasped so tightly his knuckles had gone white. The 52-year-old veteran's eyes held that distant look she'd learned to recognize, the 1,000-yard stare of someone who'd seen too much and carried too much home with him. 3 tours in Afghanistan, an honorable discharge, and now, here he was, facing assault charges for an incident at a downtown bar. "Your Honor," Sarah stood, feeling the weight of the manila folder in her hands. Inside were witness statements, police reports, and a video that would likely send Rodriguez to prison for 2 years. But also tucked away was something else: medical records showing severe PTSD, documentation of his struggles with the VA system, and testimony from his therapist about his progress in treatment. The victim, a college student named Jake Morrison, sat in the front row with his parents. A purple bruise still painted the left side of his face, and his arm rested in a sling. Sarah's stomach churned as she remembered reviewing the security footage. Rodriguez had lost control when Morrison and his friends started chanting "terrorist" at the bar, their voices slurred with alcohol and ignorance. "The prosecution is ready, Your Honor," Sarah said, though her voice carried less conviction than usual. As she approached the podium, Sarah caught Rodriguez's eyes. For a moment she saw not the defendant, but the 20-year-old kid who'd enlisted right after 9/11, who'd served his country with honor, who'd come home broken and forgotten by the very system he'd fought to protect. Her opening statement began conventionally enough: the facts, the evidence, the need for accountability. But as she spoke, Sarah found herself weaving in details that painted Rodriguez not as a monster, but as a man undone by trauma and failed by institutions meant to help him heal. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," she continued, her voice gaining strength, "Mr. Rodriguez's actions that night were wrong. Violence is never acceptable, but I ask you to consider not just what happened, but why it happened. When we send our young people to war, we promise to take care of them when they come home. This case isn't just about one night in a bar, it's about what happens when that promise is broken." She could feel District Attorney Williams's eyes boring into her back from the gallery, could sense the shift in the courtroom's energy. This wasn't how prosecutors were supposed to talk. The lunch recess felt like a reprieve, but Sarah knew the storm was coming. She'd barely settled into her cramped office when District Attorney Harold Williams appeared in her doorway, his face flushed with anger. "What the hell was that, Chen?" Williams slammed the door behind him, making the diplomas on her wall rattle. "You sounded like you were working for the defense." Sarah set down her sandwich, her appetite gone. Through her small window, she could see the city stretching out below, thousands of people going about their lives, unaware of the moral reckoning happening in this sterile government building. "I was presenting the full picture, Harold. That's what we're supposed to do. Seek justice, not just convictions." Williams laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Justice? You think coddling a violent criminal is justice? What about that kid's family? What about the message we're sending? The message that we understand the difference between a career criminal and a veteran having a psychological break?" Sarah stood, meeting his glare. "Marcus Rodriguez served 3 tours, Harold. He came home with invisible wounds, and we've done nothing to help him heal them." "That's not our job," Williams snapped. "Our job is to prosecute crimes, not provide therapy sessions for every sob story that walks through those doors." Sarah thought about Rodriguez sitting in the holding cell downstairs, probably wondering if anyone understood what it felt like to wake up every morning fighting a war that existed only in his mind. She thought about the statistics she'd memorized: 22 veterans committing suicide every day, countless others struggling with addiction, homelessness, and isolation. "When did we stop caring about why people do what they do?" she asked quietly. "The day you decided to run for district attorney," Williams shot back, and Sarah felt the words hit like a physical blow. It was true. She'd been considering a run against him in the next election, had been building support among younger prosecutors who shared her vision of reform-minded justice. "This isn't about politics, Harold. Everything is about politics." he replied, straightening his tie. And if you can't see that, maybe you're in the wrong line of work. I want you to stick to the facts this afternoon. The assault, the injuries, the evidence. Leave the social work to someone else. After he left, Sarah sat in the silence of her office, listening to the muffled sounds of the courthouse around her. On her desk sat a photo of her law school graduation, her parents beaming with pride on either side of her. They'd immigrated from Taiwan with nothing but hope and determination, working double shifts so she could have opportunities they'd never dreamed of. Her phone buzzed with a text from Rodriguez's public defender. Thank you for seeing him as human. That afternoon, as Sarah presented the prosecution's case, she could feel herself standing at a crossroads. Every instinct told her to follow Williams's directive, to play it safe, to protect her career. But every time she looked at Rodriguez, she saw the cost of a system that had forgotten its obligation to heal as well as punish. When she called Dr. Patricia Reeves, Rodriguez's VA therapist, as a witness, a move that would enrage Williams, Sarah knew she was crossing a line from which there might be no return. Sarah's phone rang at 6:47 the next morning, jolting her from a restless sleep. The sun hadn't yet risen over her modest apartment in Arlington, and the coffee maker hadn't finished brewing when Harold Williams's voice crackled through the speaker. My office, 9 o'clock, don't be late. The line went dead, leaving Sarah staring at her reflection in the dark window. She'd spent most of the night replaying the previous day's testimony. Dr. Reeves's powerful words about Rodriguez's progress in treatment, the way the jury had listened with something approaching understanding rather than condemnation. The commute to downtown felt longer than usual, the familiar landmarks of D.C. passing in a blur as Sarah's mind raced through possibilities. She'd worked for Williams for 8 years, had built her reputation case by case, conviction by conviction. The thought of starting over felt overwhelming. Williams's office occupied a corner of the building with windows facing both the Capitol and the Washington Monument. As Sarah entered, she found him standing with his back to her, silhouetted against the morning light. Sit down, he said without turning around. The leather chair felt cold against her back as she waited for him to speak. On his desk, she could see newspaper clippings from the Rodriguez case, including a headline that read, Prosecutor's Unusual Defense of Veteran Sparks Debate. You've made quite an impression, Williams finally said, turning to face her. I've had calls from 3 city council members, the mayor's office, and 2 reporters from the Washington Post. Everyone wants to know why one of my prosecutors seems more interested in defending the accused than seeking justice for the victim. Sarah straightened in her chair. I sought justice, Harold. The jury returned a verdict of guilty on a lesser charge with a recommendation for treatment rather than prison time. Rodriguez gets the help he needs, and Jake Morrison gets accountability for what happened to him. You undermined this office, Williams's voice rose. You made us look weak, like we don't support victims of violent crime. I made us look like we understand that justice isn't always about maximum punishment, Sarah countered. Sometimes it's about finding solutions that actually make communities safer. Williams walked around his desk, stopping directly in front of her chair. The scent of his expensive cologne mixed with the morning coffee created an oddly intimate atmosphere for what felt like an execution. I'm terminating your employment, effective immediately, he said quietly. Security will escort you out. Your personal items will be sent to your home address. The words hit Sarah like cold water, even though she'd been expecting them. 8 years of her life, hundreds of cases, the respect of her colleagues, all of it disappearing because she'd chosen to see a defendant as more than just another criminal. This is a mistake, Harold, she said, standing slowly. The Rodriguez case is getting attention because people are tired of a system that throws away broken people instead of trying to fix them. That's not our job, Williams repeated, but this time the words sounded hollow, practiced. As security escorted her through the halls she'd walked confidently for nearly a decade, Sarah caught glimpses of her colleagues watching through office doorways. Some looked sympathetic, others confused, a few openly hostile. The whole experience felt surreal, like watching someone else's career implode. Outside the courthouse, the September air carried the scent of changing leaves and the distant sound of traffic on the Potomac. Sarah stood on the steps where she'd given countless press conferences, feeling unmoored and strangely liberated at the same time. Her phone buzzed with messages from friends, former colleagues, and reporters seeking comment. But one stood out from the rest, a text from an unknown number. Dr. Reeves gave me your contact. Marcus Rodriguez here. Thank you for seeing me as worth saving. The treatment program starts Monday. 24 hours after cleaning out her desk, Sarah was sitting in her apartment in worn pajamas, laptop open to job search websites, when her phone rang with a DC area code she didn't recognize. Ms. Chen, this is Angela Martinez from the White House Office of Presidential Personnel. Sarah nearly dropped her coffee mug. I'm sorry, what? The president would like to meet with you this afternoon, if you're available. Can you be at the West Wing by 2 o'clock? The next few hours passed in a blur of preparation and speculation. Sarah's mind raced through possibilities as she selected her most professional suit and tried to calm her nerves. The Rodriguez case had generated significant media attention, but she never imagined it would reach the highest levels of government. The White House security checkpoint felt like entering another world. As Sarah waited in the lobby, she studied the portraits of former presidents and wondered what her parents would think if they could see her now. Their daughter, fired just yesterday, about to meet the President of the United States. Ms. Chen? A young aide appeared at her side. The president will see you now. The Oval Office was smaller than she'd expected, but no less intimidating. President Morrison, no relation to the victim in Rodriguez's case, despite the unfortunate coincidence of names, rose from behind the resolute desk as she entered. Ms. Chen, thank you for coming, the president said, extending his hand. Please, sit down. As they settled into chairs near the fireplace, Sarah noticed a folder on the coffee table marked with her name. I've been following the Rodriguez case, the president began, his voice carrying the authority of his office but also an unexpected warmth. What you did took considerable courage. With respect, Mr. President, I'm not sure my former boss would agree. President Morrison smiled. Harold Williams is a good prosecutor, but sometimes good prosecutors can't see the forest for the trees. You did something important in that courtroom. You reminded everyone that justice isn't just about punishment, it's about understanding and healing. He leaned forward, his expression growing serious. I've been working on criminal justice reform since I took office, but I need people who understand that the system is made up of individual human stories, not just statistics and case files. Sarah felt her heart rate quicken. Mr. President, I'm honored, but I should mention that I was just fired for doing exactly what I need you to do, he interrupted gently. I'm creating a new position, Special Advisor for Criminal Justice Reform. The job would involve working with federal prosecutors, reviewing cases that highlight systemic issues, and developing policies that address root causes of crime rather than just symptoms. The offer hung in the air between them, monumentally life-changing and terrifying in equal measure. Sarah thought about Marcus Rodriguez, probably attending his first therapy session at that very moment. She thought about the thousands of other veterans struggling with invisible wounds, about the prosecutors who wanted to seek justice but felt constrained by political pressure. The Rodriguez case isn't an anomaly, she said finally. There are dozens of cases like his crossing our desks every month. People failed by systems that were supposed to help them. I know, the president nodded. That's why I need someone who sees those people as more than just defendants. As Sarah walked back through the White House gates an hour later, she pulled out her phone and scrolled to Marcus Rodriguez's contact information. Mr. Rodriguez, this is Sarah Chen. I wanted to check on how your first day of treatment went. His voice, when it came through the speaker, carried a lightness she hadn't heard in the courtroom. It was good, Ms. Chen. Really good. Dr. Reeves says I'm making progress. I heard what happened to you, losing your job for standing up for people like me. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry, Sarah said, looking back at the White House where she would start work on Monday morning. Sometimes the best things come from the worst situations. Kind of like getting help instead of going to prison? Sarah smiled, feeling a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced in years. Exactly like that, Mr. Rodriguez. Exactly like that. The Washington Monument stretched toward the evening sky, a reminder of the ideals the nation aspired to reach. Justice, Sarah realized, wasn't about winning or losing cases. It was about ensuring that the system served all people, even the broken ones who needed it most.